Hello and welcome to GCS Today here on Channel 21, the program that brings you news and information from Gaston County Schools. I'm Todd Hagans. On today's edition, we talk with Superintendent Booker about what has happened in Gaston County Schools over the past year, and we spend time with a teacher who is celebrating a golden anniversary. Joining me on GCS Today is our Superintendent of Schools, W. Jeffrey Booker. Mr. Booker, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Todd.
Now, it's the time of year where we are approaching a new calendar year. And as we look forward to that new calendar year, we like to always take a look back. So that's what we're doing today. We are looking back at 2018 and some of the things that have happened in Gaston County Schools. Now, if we had to make a list, I would probably say number one on that list might be the passage of the school bonds in May.
What a great period of time to be out in the community talking about our school needs and the capital requirements and what we're looking to do over the coming 5-year period, and to then have the voters come out and have a 69% approval rating. It showed so much, and at the same time to support a sales tax associated with the bonds to fund those bonds, which would lessen the burden on the general taxpayer. All of that passing was a great positive force, and it's an exciting time now because we've just received the bids for the middle school that was planned with those bonds, and the county has sold the first installment of the bonds, $60 million, and that's in the bank and ready to go. And so in the coming months, one of the things that we'll look back on 2019 will be the beginning of construction of the new middle school.
And that was a $250 million bond referendum, a bond package for Gaston County Schools, the largest that we've ever had, and it had overwhelming support. So I think that says a lot about our community taking an interest in our schools and realizing what our needs are with our facilities.
And it was, when you say overwhelming support, that support was across. When you looked at the voters throughout our county, all precincts showing support for that. Was a great referendum on the schools and saying what we're doing, and people appreciate that and support us. And
from that bond referendum, we're going to get 3 new schools. We're going to get some additions and renovations in our schools with classrooms and cafeterias, and then we're going to spend a lot of that money is going to be on the upkeep and the maintenance of our schools.
Yes, we've identified over $600 million of pent-up needs to address. And so basically a 50-50 spread of this bond money will go to new construction and to repair and renovation of existing facilities. So that's why we're very excited about what will come about in the next 3 years.
And we had a lot of energy in the last school year when it came to new facilities, with the opening of Stanley Middle School in March and then the opening of Pleasant Ridge last August. And knowing that we're going to have a new middle school in Belmont in a couple of years, I think it generates a lot of interest and a lot of energy in the community.
I was at Stanley Middle School this week and meeting with a group of kids, and to hear them talk about being in that new school and the energy that they have for that school and the way they feel about that school, it's a great thing. It shows our kids that we're investing in them and that people appreciate them. So a lot of positive energy. I've been to numerous events at Pleasant Ridge where that school with the choice program that's a part of both of those schools, you see the whole community getting to access those new resources that we have. So it's a real exciting time.
We talk about our construction, our new buildings that are coming up. A lot of energy, a lot of excitement with that. A lot of focus also this year on school safety. And one thing that we were really proud of is the additional funding from the county to ensure that we have a full-time resource officer at every school.
I think school safety is something that we all think about every morning and every night. And to be able to work with our commissioners in a time when there's never enough money for everything that's needed. But in this, they said, this is what we need to do. And there was another national event that occurred, and they just said, we have been doing part-time resource officers at our elementary schools, we need to get full-time. And so as we came into this school year, the 2018-19 school year, there was adequate funding so that we could secure full-time resource officers at all 54 of our schools. And going back to meeting with those students, this week I've been in 4 different schools meeting with focus groups of students, and in each of those, they're appreciative of our resource officers. They're asking for that support because it makes them feel confident and secure when they're at school. And so we're very excited, and we appreciate the whole community, because school safety, it doesn't ride on one person. It rides on our whole community listening, watching, and being vigilant about what's going on. And some of our best information on keeping our schools safe comes from a parent who hears 3 kids talking about something. And it may not be what they're talking about, but to have that conversation, and they notify the school, let a principal know, I just heard these kids talking, and we can look into it and be progressive and proactive rather than reactive. And so the community really supports us.
And I think a lot of that proactive approach is because of our partnership with law enforcement here in Gaston County. I think that says a lot because we have that strong partnership.
And Todd, recently there's been a lot of focus on school safety, and as various commissions have been formed, they've come to our county to look at what we do, because we have been shown, not the school system, but a community. And you talk about law enforcement, and with the police chiefs, their commitment, it's one phone call and they put resources in our schools if it's needed. And so it's a really positive thing, and other communities are looking, trying to say, how do we do that? And it's reflected when you look at our historical ratings, those numbers that look at our crime incidents in our schools. We are consistently the safest among the large urban districts, and that's always something that we pride ourselves on, but we don't ever take for granted.
Yes, and all of that continued effort of school safety and being one of the safest school districts in our state, it's because of those partnerships and those resources that are available. Now, Mr. Booker, let's talk a little bit about academics and some of the progress that we have made with academics this year. Probably our biggest area for improvement is the area of academic growth this year.
Yeah, growth is something that public schools have focused on for a long time. Saying, where does young student come in, and do we grow them the full year of academic learning that they could potentially learn? And that measure is based on each individual student, and to compare it across with other students in the state. And it's really exciting to watch that we have had a percentage in the low 80s, now in the mid 80s, of growth in our schools that either met or exceeded growth. And when you look at the 10 largest districts in the state of North Carolina, and I think about this for a second, Todd, that's talking about the 160-some thousand students in the Raleigh area, the 140-some thousand in the Mecklenburg, Charlotte area. Comparing us to those in the Guilford, Greensboro area schools, we're the #1 district in the growth of our students. And that really talks about what's going on. And what's more impressive is that's a 2-year number. So this year it looked great, but it was an increase of 2 schools over the previous year. So it's a sustained growth, which is what's important. It means our teachers are working so effectively with reaching students where they are and growing them from that point. And we can't say enough about the hard work that our teachers are doing every day in that classroom to meet each individual student's needs. That's what that measure really reflects, is growing each student, because you can't make it if you're not pulling all the students forward.
And I'm so glad you said that, because that academic growth is a direct sign of the positives that are happening in the classroom, and it's a reflection of the hard work of our teachers and really other people in the schools and even at the central level that are responsible for the academics in Gaston County schools.
And you'll hear a lot of things said about personalized learning. There's no greater example of personalized learning than visiting a classroom, and you'll see notebooks with individual notebooks for each child, and you sit down with that child and they can walk through and talk about their own academic performance and where they need to go. That's in an elementary level. And then as they grow into it in the middle and high, it's given them an understanding of what's going on, but knowing each of those teachers has access to that data to work with them and see that. It is phenomenal work. But that's where we talk about the dedication of our teachers. So they're meeting it. They're preparing curriculum lessons. They're keeping up with what the state says we should be doing, but they're still looking back and saying, what does this individual child need? And it's a really exciting time. Another thing that we think contributes to that is their use of our iReady program, because students can access that from home to supplement their lessons. And meeting with these students, I heard them talking about iReady, I heard them talking about their Google Classroom and how their teachers make things available to them after hours and meeting them. So it all begins. We can talk about technology, we can talk about new buildings, we can talk about, but it's the teacher. And we are very fortunate to have such a dedicated teaching staff.
I agree with you 100% on that. Now let's look at just a few other things related to academics. Our student proficiency, we've seen steady increases in student proficiency. And if you look back to when the state implemented the new testing standards, 2013-2014 school year, we are up almost 6 points over that time period. I think that also says a lot about what's happening in our schools.
It does, and we believe if we'll continue on this path of positive growth, we'll see the growth in proficiency. Now, what we know is things continually change on the proficiency side. Right now, the state is reevaluating the math. So while it's had a 5-year window, it'll have a new window. So this spring, it'll be a new evaluation tool that will be going on. And that's a state-controlled thing. Our faculty just takes that as in stride of what's going on, because they say, we're going to still teach the right things for our kids to become. And so we have been excited about the growth and proficiency, but we'll still be focusing on growing kids.
Now you mentioned changes at the state level. The state changed this year the way the graduation rate is calculated, which led a lot of districts to see a decrease in the graduation rate. So we are at 85.6%. But even though with the changes, we have 6 of our high schools that still exceed 90% with the graduation rate.
And that's a reflection. When we talk to the community, they said it's great to talk about graduation, but let's talk about what our students are capable of doing. And so to have 6 with the 90% is great. You know, the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is the big, large, all-encompassing, throughout our country, it's federally mandated, is what made them evaluate and say, we don't like the way North Carolina's calculating that. And so it recalculated, and it impacted our overall district rate. But what it didn't impact is our care and commitment for kids graduating. You look at our dropout rate, where kids are in school, we have one of the lowest dropout rates of the large districts. So that says that our teams, meaning our administrative teams in the school, are trying to identify and meet kids where they are and offer them. If you look at our second graduation, as we call it, the one that's held at the end of June, that's a great time to go and see kids who had maybe just one little slip, and they were given an opportunity to make that up and then have another 50, 60 children graduate. That's what it is about. A big number looks something, but again, it gets back to that individual child and preparing them for the future.
And talking about our graduates, we want to mention our seniors in the class of 2018 earned a record amount in scholarships, $58.6 million in scholarships, and we believe that's the highest amount ever for Gaston County Schools.
And you know, Todd, if you go back 2 years ago, the number, we thought, oh my goodness, how will we ever get, because we had 2 Air Force academies, which those are huge scholarships. We had a number of great academic scholarships, and we thought, wow, this is a number we'll never top again.
We were at 53 million. We thought, gosh, that's a big number. And here we are at 58.6. Yeah.
But again, it speaks to what our teachers are doing with their kids. And think about that's guidance counselors helping kids apply for scholarships and get opportunities. Then thinking about today, I had a person come up and say, hey, I've learned about this scholarship tied to junior ROTC. Can you get me some qualified applicants for this? I'm like, yes, sir, we will be glad to work on that. So that's the encouraging thing that our community recognizes. Scholarships are necessary for kids to help. It's very expensive to go to college, but there are opportunities out there. And when you hear that number, I mean, say it again,
58.6 million.
That's just overwhelming when you think about what that is. So it's a great reflection of what's going on in our schools.
And as we are looking back over 2018, we kicked off our 50th anniversary for Gaston County Schools in August with our employee convocation and then we had our big 50 parade in September in downtown Gastonia. And we're going to celebrate all year long. The celebration will continue into 2019. What does it say about, what are you hearing in the community about our 50-year celebration and the attention it's bringing to our schools?
I think one of the things that we didn't think about when we started talking about celebrating the 50 is the pride of 50 years. One of our high schools for homecoming this year brought back all of the past homecoming queens that they could find. So out of some 50 years, they had 38 homecoming queens come back. And things like it's brought to the attention of, we have a strong heritage in this community. And you look at that parade, the Lincoln High School being part of that parade. It's an appreciation for all of the history of Gaston County, and their pride in how they participated in the parade was just a really neat experience. So you're hearing that. A lot of the retirees who came back and participated in the parade said it was nice to be remembered for my contribution, because we focus on, 58.6, but that didn't happen without all the foundational things that have been done over 50 years. So it's a great thing. This community has a lot to be proud of in the way our schools have been joined together with still respect for each of the individual cities and towns that are in our county, but recognizing together the strength of a county school system.
And we will continue to celebrate our 50th anniversary. It will conclude at the end of the school year with a big reception, a birthday party, I guess you could say, for Gaston County Schools. And of course, we want everyone watching to keep up with what's going on. Go to our website, and they can click on the big 50 icon to learn about what's going on.
Right now, they can go to the public library and see some great pictures.
We had our pictures at the library. We are working on another display at the Gaston County Museum in Dallas, and we've got an employee talent show. We've got some other surprises that are coming.
But that again speaks to the county. All these partnerships that are letting us have venues to display things. We really appreciate all the partnerships that we have, and that's what that big party will be at the end of the year, recognizing all these business partners and community partners that we have. Just yesterday we had a ribbon cutting at Webb Street for the playground, and when you saw the number of community partners that stepped up and said, yes, we want to see this, over $300,000 raised to present an adaptable playground, this an asset for this county, but wow, what it does for Webb Street. So it's an exciting time to be in Gaston County.
2018, a very exciting and memorable year for Gaston County Schools, and we are looking forward to many more reasons to celebrate in 2019. Superintendent of Schools, W. Jeffrey Booker, thank you for being with us here on GCS Today.
Thank you, Tom.
You are watching GCS Today here on Channel 21. We will be right back.
And then from this angle, it all makes a star.
I'm a teacher. Let me tell you what I make. I make learning a privilege, not a chore.
Show up
And frustration,
absorb
a
what
tool,
people are giving you.
not an obstacle. I make working hard seem easy, and giving up impossible.
And then we're going to turn the lights and everybody look up.
I make an old subject feel like a fresh thought.
Find me one.
What's your reaction gonna be? Yeah, exactly.
And unconventional methods
Okay, what else?
common.
Little tadpoles, the frogs. Everybody say, this is their world.
There's nothing.
And then they die. Go ahead, go, go, go.
I'm a teacher. I make more.
Joining me on GCS Today is Mamie Chisholm. She is the French teacher at Ashbrook High School, and she is celebrating a golden anniversary, and that's what we're going to talk about. Thank you for being with us here on
Thank you for
GCS
asking
Today.
me.
Now, you have been teaching in Gaston County Schools 50 years.
Yes,
You
sir.
began teaching with us in August of 1968,
Yes.
the year that Gaston County Schools became a unified school district. You've been
Yes.
with us since the
Yes.
very beginning.
Yes.
What has it been like to teach for 50 years?
Like eating candy. You like different flavors, so you go from one flavor to the next. But honestly, it's been a joy beginning in '68, and it's still a joy today. If you want to know a similarity from '68 to now, I would say my love for it, my passion is still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, I think it's even more so because you see the needs of the students that come in your room each day, and you just want to meet those needs as much as you possibly can. So it's just been an honor to teach for those many years. It just doesn't matter what you've had to go through. It's just that you know that I'm going to do something I really love to do. So it doesn't seem like 50 years. It really doesn't. And I didn't think about it until Dr. Wilson said, Mamie, Mr. Hagens would like for you, in fact, he asked me a question, you know, I think Mamie Chisholm has been in this county for 50 years teaching. And she said, oh, really? So when she called me, you know, I confirmed, yes, I have been. And I thought, wow, I have been. So that's when I first thought, well, maybe you have. You know, I started in '67 in Troy, North Carolina. So actually 51 years for me, but here in Gaston County, 50, yes.
And so you taught for 32 years French at South Point High School. You retired, but you didn't stay gone too long.
No.
Because you came back and worked as a librarian at Woodhill Elementary.
Yes.
And now we've got you back at Ashbrook,
yes,
teaching French at
and
Ashbrook.
also worked at Lingerfeld as a librarian.
Okay.
For you know, all that time, and then all of a sudden I said, you know, I think that's it, because I got sick, and I thought, well, maybe this is the Lord telling me maybe you just need to rest a while. But of course, Paige Carver called me and she said, I need you to come interview. And ironically, Rebecca Wilson, now principal, was an AP then. And my son-in-law, Torben, was also there as an AP. And so when I walked in for the interview, Rebecca was sitting there with Paige, and they interviewed me, and she said, Mamie, would you just do it? And I said, okay, I will. So I've been there since '07.
That's great. That's great. Now, how did you decide to become a teacher? Was there someone that inspired you, or something that motivated you to become a teacher?
I think the love working with children. You know, we were always active in our church, you know, working with little children, and then we'd play school at home. So I have two sisters and a brother, and my sisters and I would play different games, and I would teach, and they would listen, and then of course they would do the same thing. And I just knew, you know, you just have that inner feeling that there's something I really want to do. As I went through high school, French was my favorite subject, but that was not going to be my major. I wanted to do home economics because I like to sew, and I like to make things and cook and that kind of thing. So I was really interested in that. So after I went to Johnson C. Smith, they did not have home economics. So I said, okay, I've got to decide on another major. And I said, I'll wait to the end of my sophomore year to do that. Well, I met a professor who was named Madame Adam, and she was from France. And I took my first French class, and she approached me one day and she said, Mamie? And I said, oui. She said, what's your major? And I told her I hadn't decided. And she said, you should think about French. And I said, oh, Lord, no. And I said, I love the language, and I think it just comes natural for me. I don't know why, but it does. And she said, okay, but think about it. Well, I took second semester, and she came again, and she said, I really hope that you will think about it. Just think about a major. So after I took my last class, I told my parents, I said, I think your daughter is going to major in French. And they said, we've taught you, do whatever you feel like you want to do. because you're going to be good at it. They were very supportive, always supportive, always promoting education. My father was president of the PTO back in those days, and he was always active in what we did. So he promoted all of us to do the best we could do. And he said, "You'll make a good one." He said, "Maybe you'll go to France one day," which I did, of course. But I have to say, she was she motivated me to want to major in French. And that's what I did.
And like they say, the rest of it is history.
Yes, Lord.
I guess you could say.
Yes.
Now, you had the opportunity to serve as the honorary Grand Marshal for our Big 50 parade that we had in September,
Yes.
as the kickoff for the 50th anniversary
Wow.
for Gaston County Schools.
Yes.
What about that experience will you always remember?
I will always remember riding down the street and waving to all of those people. I could not believe it. It was a wow all the way down the street. And I kept thinking, Mamie, this is actually you in this wonderful convertible, and you're riding down the street. You know, it's like an out-of-body experience. And I kept thinking, and everybody's waving. They're saying, Mamie. Some would say Mamie. Some would say Miss Chisholm. And I could hear some students say Maman. And I was in awe. I really was. I said, don't cheer up. Almost did. You know, but I've never had that feeling before. It's hard to explain. You know, you feel so blessed. And I was just so honored. I still am honored to just think that I'm being recognized for my years of something I love to do. And don't get me, Lord, I'll start.
Well, I know you were a little bit reluctant to do that when we
Yes.
first asked you about it.
I was.
But
I don't like to be out front, really. If people know me well, they know I love to do my thing in the classroom. I'm a physical response teacher, always have been. And so I love to get my students involved in whatever I'm doing. You know, we did possessive adjectives today. Well, you know, you just don't tell them it's mon, ma, and me. You got to tell them it's mon, ma, me, and a ton, ta, te. And you get them involved, and then you dance with them, and you sing with them, and you do they like to say rap, you know. You just do all kinds of things that will cause them to be engaged, you know, and that kind of thing. So, I don't know. It was wonderful.
Well,
just
thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you for agreeing to be our honorary Grand Marshal, because you're most deserving.
Thank Gaston County.
that.
Thank you for that.
So,
it was awesome.
It was. Our Big 50 parade, we had a great day.
Yes.
Great day.
Still
with the
talking
parade.
about it.
Now, you have taught a lot of lessons over the years. What lessons have your students taught you?
Wow, so many. So many. But I will say, primarily, I think my students have taught me to listen more to them. It's not about me telling them, I am the teacher in this classroom and you will do what I say, which is true. I am the teacher in the classroom. But I think once we get to know our students, and that's so important, you've got to get to know who you're teaching. And because all of them are different, you know, we have a diverse classroom, and that's one of the different things today is that there's more diversity in the schools. So I feel like if you don't try to get to know them, then you are just standing up there teaching for 90 minutes and the bell rings and they go out the door and you say, okay. But you can remember Jacques needs this, you know, for him to understand what I'm teaching. And Marie needs this. And Angèle needs this. So you learn those things. And when I'm teaching, if I don't learn to listen to what they're saying, as far as when I was teaching how to do one of them said, inversion of the verbs, the subject pronoun and the verb. And I said, okay, class, this is my most favorite way to make a sentence a question. And that is, we're going to change places with the subject and the verb. Well, and I said, comprenez-vous, which means do you understand? And I said the word is invert. Well, what about the students that don't understand what invert means? So one of my students, they said, oh, Maman, you mean backwards? And I said, oh, yes. So I wrote backwards on the board. And then another one said, so you mean switch places? So I wrote switch on the board. Well, guess what? I hadn't thought of backwards, and I hadn't thought of switch. I'm just used to saying, doing this and saying change places. And so that's just an example of them teaching, you know, me learning from them, learning what turns them on and what turns them off. And we don't just have, I don't just teach French every day. Now, most of the time, yes, but there are times when we need to have conversations about character ed, different things that bother, you know, that's on their mind, they're concerned about, and they may come in and ask you a question, and you might say, oh gosh, I've got to get this done. If I don't get this done, I'm going to be behind. You've got to take the time to listen to them. So if we can do that, teachers, do more of it. I know teachers do it, but if we can listen to them, hear their cry sometimes, you know, we may have fewer problems if we would just do that. So you learn every day from them. And Lord, generations are so different than before. 68, I could just go in and my students were just nice, just standing, I mean, just sitting there, and I could do whatever and they would do it. And as the years, you know, progressed, you get that change of generations, and you got to go in and you say, oh, well, this is not quite as easy. Now the jumping and the clapping and all of that doesn't seem to turn them on. So you have to learn how to motivate them in different ways. You got to use different strategies. And to do that, they cause you, they show you different things that they want to do. So that's teaching you something too. So we've got to be able to receive from what the students are trying to teach us. You know, I think it's a two-way street.
It is a two-way street. It really is.
If you want success, it's a two-way street.
You're celebrating your golden anniversary with
Yes.
Gaston County Schools. Thank you for everything you've done over that 50 years.
Bless you.
For the many, many
Thank you.
students that have come through your classrooms, and the impression and the influence you've been on their lives.
Oh,
I
thank
know they
you.
appreciate you, and
I
I
hope
know
so.
that they love you.
I hope so.
And we appreciate
love
you.
them.
We're proud of you, and we're so glad that you are still a part of Gaston County Schools, and we appreciate you being with us here today.
Thank
on
you so
GCS
much for
Today.
asking me. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Gaston County.
Thank you for watching GCS Today. Stay tuned to Channel 21 for the latest school news and information, and be sure to download the Gaston County Schools mobile app from Google Play or Apple iTunes. It's a free download. For GCS Today, I'm Todd Hagans. We look forward to seeing you next time.